Hi guys, I'm Pratik from LWP Labs. So in this video, I want to talk something about SQL Server on-premise and managed instance. So what is the exact difference between these two? So when I talk about SQL Server on-premise and managed instance, we already know that SQL Server premise is nothing but when we install and manage our SQL Server on our own hardware, that is in our own system or in our data center, we will be in charge of everything. That can be the setup, data updates, backups, and the maintenance. And when we talk about our managed instance, we know that this is a service that's provided by like a Microsoft, that's where the SQL Server is hosted and is managed by the Microsoft. So we need not worry about the hardware updates or backup. So everything is done by the Microsoft, and you will get all the SQL Server features. So now when I say that, we know now that on premises we manage everything by yourself, and with managed instance, Microsoft takes care of everything. So what is the difference now is that it's the hosting location. So when we talk about hosting location, we should know that the SQL Server on premise is hosted on our physical server, and for managed instance is hosted in our cloud. So that's nothing but our Microsoft Azure. And something else I want to talk about is the management. So when I talk about management for under server on premise, we are responsible for everything. That's installation, maintenance, updates, backups. And managed instance is where Microsoft will handle all of the tasks for us, like it can be backups, security, updates. Now we have seen these two key differences already. Now something else is the file path. So when I talk about file paths, what is it exactly is it about? So it involves how the resources like the files, backups, and configurations, they are managed differently. So when we talk about file paths or storage, we under for SQL Server, we define and manage the full paths for these data files. It can be either data files, it can be either backups, or it can be log files. So and also the data files, it can be either stored such as in our C drive. So when I say when the data files might be stored in C drive, they can be stored in such a way that in a C drive they'll be stored as for example in under C SQL data my database.mdf. So this will be the file structure, and the log files will be stored under the D drive. So when I talk about D drive, it will be something like this. So it will be data file, or C drive will be the data file, and the D file will be SQL log file. So logs mydb dot that will be stored in LDF file. So the file system is completely under our control, means that we will be manually configuring the disk storage and paths. And when we talk about managed instance, the Microsoft manages all the storage and Microsoft's file paths for us. So we don't need to specify the full paths for our database. So whenever we need to create a database, we don't control where the where the files are placed. So the Azure will handle the storage location and file management, all of them automatically. So instead of our traditional paths, such as like as I told, as in our data files, that is C drive, SQL data, something like this. So if the data is stored something like this in our C drive, the files are managed by the service, and the storage paths, they will be abstracted. So the customization of paths for like it can be either MDF or the LDF files, there is not available in our managed instance. So Microsoft will optimize the storage within this managed infrastructure. And then one last thing is the authentication. So when we talk about authentication, uh, it's something which differentiates between these two. It's something very important we learn. So that is when we talk about it, it's something we call it as an Azure Active Directory authentication. So that's a key feature that comes under these two. So when we talk about SQL Server on premises, so this Active Directory for this on premises SQL Server is not supported for it. So for the authentication, we have to use Windows authentication. So we'll be using something as Windows for our SQL on premises. So this will be our Windows authentication for SQL premises, and we can integrate our SQL server. We can integrate our SQL server into this Windows authentication. So with an on-premise Active Directory, we can do this, but this doesn't involve our Azure Active Directory. So that's something very important when we talk about this one. And when we talk about SQL Server Managed Instance, the Azure Active Directories will be fully supported for managed instance. So managed instance, so I call it as MI. So this is MI. So this is supported for the Azure Active Directory. So we can authenticate users, we can manage the access to the server managed system using the AAD, that's in short for Azure Active Directory. So we can connect by using our credentials, which will make it easier to access for cloud-based applications, to be more specific, I can say. And when we talk about more in deep, there will be more technical terms that comes under managed instance for Azure Active Directory. There can be single sign-on, that is single sign-on. So when I talk about single sign-on, so it's nothing but an Azure Active Directory. They can access the Azure SQL Server instance, means that they can be authenticated by using the Azure Active Directory, by using the single sign-on option. So there's also other technical terms that comes under it. There's also modern authentication that's come into the recent into the recent world of Azure Active Directory. So when we talk about modern authentication, it supports multiple authentication, multi-factor authentication, I should say, or it can be other policies that supports under modern authentication. So that is some of the differences of SQL Server on-premise and managed instance. Thank you.
Welcome to LWP Labs. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to view free Azure DevOps live classes. And for more videos like this, please contact the number shown in the description. Happy learning!